We'll earn our Toon degree. The teaching staff's been getting less.
Since 1933!
We're classmates and roommates.
I'm afraid of no ghosts.
Think back to those perfect Saturday mornings of your childhood. The hush of the house before anyone else stirred. The squeak of footy pajamas on the hallway floor. The clatter of a spoon against a mountain of neon-colored cereal. You're settled in front of your TV expecting harmless fun, wacky slapstick, goofy heroes, and a neat little moral to make parents feel good about letting you binge cartoons. But hidden among those bright colors and cheerful theme songs were episodes so startling that the networks who aired them scrambled to pretend they never even happened. Some were yanked after a single broadcast, others locked away before the public even saw them, and a few left behind the trail of outrage and even real-world emergencies. Today we're digging up 5 of those forbidden episodes, cartoons from the 80s and 90s that were so controversial their own creators tried to bury them forever. If you love these deep dive nostalgia investigations, don't forget to tap on that super thanks button to help keep these videos coming. And if you want to track down those shows we're talking about, you'll find links to the official DVD collections right in the description below. And if you think this is just about a few harmless pranks, wait until you hear what happened when one of these episodes literally sent children to the hospital.
We're Toony, we're all a little loony. And in this cartoony, we're invading your TV. We're comic dispensers.
Our very first stop takes us to Acme Acres, the playful world of Tiny Toon Adventures, Steven Spielberg's early 90s love letter to the Looney Tunes, a show famous for its hyperactive gags, razor-sharp pop culture riffs, and the kind of safe, winking humor that parents could trust. At least, that's what everyone thought. In 1991, an episode titled Elephant Issues aired that seemed at first like more of the same. 3 bite-sized comedy sketches stitched together for a breezy Saturday morning laugh. The first 2 were textbook Tiny Toons, cartoon chaos and quick-fire jokes. But the final segment, Buster and the Bully, drifted into territory no parent was remotely prepared for. Buster Bunny, usually the wise-cracking ever-bunny hero, meets Concord Condor, a timid bird who has become the favorite target of a merciless schoolyard tormentor. Buster steps in to help, and at first, it's just business as usual. Slapstick strategies, ridiculous pratfalls, that familiar music sting when someone gets bonked on the head. But almost slowly, something begins to change. The backgrounds grow darker, the colors flatten, the music fades to an ominous hush. Jokes that would normally come rapid fire start to dry up. The bully grows crueler. Concord's head droops lower with every scene, his eyes dulling from the cartoon sparkle to something hauntingly human. By the final moments, the tone has shifted completely. The laughter is gone, Concord slips away, shoulders sagging, and there's a long, aching pause. Then, without a single gag or even a shade of the usual lesson learned wrap-up, the story ends with a chilling suggestion. Concord has taken his own life. No wink, no everything's okay safety net, just silence. Viewers were blindsided. Warner Brothers' phones lit up with angry parents demanding to know how such a scene ever made it to the air. Stations quickly pulled the episode, and within days, Elephant Issues vanished from rotation, left to survive only as a whispered rumor passed around on scratchy VHS tapes and late-night fan forums. For a generation raised on the idea that Saturday morning cartoons were the safest space on television, it was a jarring wake-up call. Even the most cheerful, sugar-coated shows could step across a line nobody realized was there and never come back. And if you think that was unsettling, brace yourself. The next Tiny Toons episode didn't just flirt with darkness, it turned a well-meaning public service message into a spectacle so outrageous that stations couldn't yank it off the air fast enough.
Esa no es una buena señal. Ay.
Only a few months after the uproar of Elephant Issues, the writers of Tiny Toons Adventures managed to light even a bigger fuse. The episode's title sounded like the kind of very special lesson parents would applaud: One Beer. The premise could not have been simpler: teach kids that alcohol is dangerous. But what made it to air was anything but a sober public service message. It begins innocently enough. Buster Bunny, Plucky Duck, and Hampton Pig discover a lone can of beer sitting in the refrigerator like a forbidden treasure. They exchange mischievous glances, the kind every kid recognizes, and decide to try a sip. The moment the frothy liquid touches their lips, the scene careens wildly off course. Their speech slurs into exaggerated hiccups, eyes glaze over in swirling spirals, and soon they are both wobbling across the house in a slapstick drunken ballet. They belt out off-key songs, crash through furniture, and giggle uncontrollably. Cartoon caricatures of intoxication that are funny at first glance, but unsettling when you remember the target audience was Saturday morning children. And then it escalates. In a sequence that feels ripped from a late-night black comedy, the trio stumble into a parked police car, decide it would be hilarious to take it for a spin, and roar off into the night. Sirens wail, the backgrounds blur in a dizzy swirl of neon lights and screeching tires. The pace quickens until, almost with no warning, they launch the vehicle straight off a cliff. For a full heartbeat, the scene holds a chilling silence. No music, no laugh track, just the image of a police car suspended over a yawning black canyon. Then comes the horrendous, thunderous crash below, and in the next instant, Buster, Plucky, and Hampton rise skyward as halo-wearing ghosts, still giggling as if death were the punchline. That is the actual ending. No parental character steps in to deliver a moral. No final title card warns about the dangers of alcohol. Just three beloved characters laughing their way into the afterlife. According to the writers, the idea was to jolt children into understanding that drinking can have deadly consequences. But for parents and TV executives, the execution looked disturbingly like three cartoon heroes having the time of their lives getting drunk and dying. The phone calls began almost immediately. Affiliates panicked and Warner Brothers pulled the episode after only a handful of test market airings. For years, One Beer existed only as a whispered playground legend. Kids claimed they'd seen it but couldn't prove it. Grainy VHS bootlegs became prized convention treasures, passed from collector to collector like contraband. When it finally surfaced on a belated home video release years later, even jaded fans were stunned at just how over the top it really was. The episode has since become a case study in how a well-meaning cautionary tale can spiral into something far more shocking. And if you think 2 controversial episodes in a single year were enough to make animators cautious, think again, because the next show on our list features an episode so outrageous that Cartoon Network didn't just pull it from syndication, they locked it in a vault and refused to let the public see it for 16 long years.
What is it? Huh? Shut up, shut up, shut up! So you want to know what my ingenious invention is, do you? You know it, bro.
Just when you thought the cartoon world had finally learned its lesson, the late 90s delivered a lost episode that became the stuff of whispered legend, and years later, an internet event. In 1997, the creative team behind Dexter's Laboratory put together a story called Rude Removal, and from the very premise, it sounded like trouble waiting to happen. Dexter, the boy genius famous for turning scientific curiosity into comic disaster, designs a machine to separate personalities into their polite and rude halves. Of course, his medding sister Dee Dee can't resist pushing the wrong button. The experiment backfires dramatically, and instead of a simple character study, we get 2 versions of each sibling, an ultra-polite pair and their shockingly foul-mouthed doppelgangers. For the next 7 gleeful minutes, the rude Dexter and Dee Dee unleash chaos on the lab like a pair of pint-sized pirates. They topple inventions, insult each other with wild abandon, and spew a string of expletives that would make a late-night comedian blush. The animators bleeped every single profanity, but the lip movements left zero doubt about what was really being said. Hard consonants and unmistakable mouth shapes that even a casual viewer could read like a bad lip sync. I don't know about you, but when I first saw this, I thought to myself, is this really happening? The contrast between the polite twins speaking in syrupy formalities and their profanity-singing counterparts made the jokes hit even harder. To the writers, it was a brilliant bit of subversive comedy. To the network standards team, it was a 5-alarm fire. Cartoon Network executives took one look at the finished episode and reportedly panicked. Bleeps or not, every parent with a child would know exactly which 4-letter words were flying. The backlash would be instant and brutal. Rather than risk it, the network quietly shelved the episode. Rude Removal was locked away, never aired, and for years existed only as a tantalizing rumor. Hardcore fans claimed they had seen rough cuts or knew someone who had worked on the show and had a VHS copy. Message boards on the early days of the internet filled with speculation and grainy screenshots, but no one could produce the real thing. As the years passed, the story of the forbidden Dexter episode took on a life of its own. It became the holy grail of lost cartoons, an urban legend whispered about at conventions and in late-night chat rooms. People debated whether the tape even existed or if it was just a fan-made myth. Then, after 16 years of speculation, Adult Swim finally broke the silence. In 2013, with a wink to the internet sleuths who had hunted for it, the network released Rude Removal online as a special event. By then, the legend had grown so massive that the premiere felt like a mini holiday. Fans flocked to YouTube and Adult Swim's site to finally see the once banned episode. It did not disappoint. The Rude twins were every bit outrageous and hilariously unprintable, as rumor had promised. But if you think an episode full of bleep swears is the wildest thing that could happen to a children's cartoon, you're about to be blindsided. Our next story isn't just about controversy or parental complaints, it's about a broadcast so dangerous that it triggered real-world medical emergencies, the kind you can measure in flashing ambulance lights and hospital admissions. December 16th, 1997. What should have been a routine Tuesday evening at Pokémon in Japan turned into a nationwide emergency that would be remembered as Pokémon Shock. Kids across the country settled in for the latest adventure of Ash, Pikachu, and their friends as they journeyed into cyberspace to face the digital Pokémon known as Porygon. The first part of the episode played out like any other. Bright colors, zippy music, the usual mix of goofy comedy and action. But then came the fateful battle sequence, and with it a visual effect that no one in the production team could have ever predicted would cause real-world chaos. As Pikachu unleashed an electric attack, the screen erupted in a rapid-fire storm of red and blue strobe lights, flashing at a frequency far beyond standard animation safety guidelines. The lights pulsed at nearly 12 flashes per second, and intensity that can trigger photosensitive seizures even in people who have never experienced one before. Within minutes, children watching across Japan began to feel the effects: dizziness, nausea, blurred vision, sudden headaches. Some clutched their stomachs and collapsed right in front of their televisions. Parents panicked and called emergency services. Ambulances' sirens cut through Tokyo's streets. Hospitals quickly filled with young patients experiencing seizures or related symptoms. By the end of the night, nearly 700 children had been treated, some requiring overnight observation. Television networks interrupted regular programming to report on the crisis, showing images of darkened living rooms and worried parents. The incident dominated international news for days. Newspapers from Tokyo to New York splashed headlines about the mysterious Pokémon Shock, and governments around the world demanded answers. The Japanese government launched an official investigation, forcing broadcasters to review their animation practices and establish new safety standards for flashing images. Nintendo and the TV network issued public apologies, but the damage had already been done. The fallout was immediate and absolute. Electric Soldier Porygon was banned worldwide and has never been officially broadcast. Not in Japan, not anywhere. Even today, if you scroll through Pokémon episodes list on streaming platforms, you'll notice a strange gap where this story should be. It's a silent reminder of the night when a children's cartoon literally sent hundreds of kids to the hospital. Parents who once worried that cartoons might rot their children's brains had suddenly seen something far more tangible and terrifying, a TV show that could physically harm viewers in real time. The shockwaves from that night changed broadcast standards across the globe and turned one ordinary episode into the most infamous 30 minutes in animation history. And if you think flashing lights and hundreds of seizures were the ultimate proof that Saturday morning cartoons could be dangerous, think again. Because more than a decade earlier, the 1980s, had already produced a cartoon episode that tapped into something even more chilling: the era's nationwide fear of the occult, and the belief that kids' entertainment might be inviting real demons into their living rooms.
Together we can drive them from the town and save your friends from the fate that befell those who lived there before. You had us very worried for a while.
During the height of the 1980s satanic panic, a time when newspaper headlines warned parents that fantasy games were secret doorways to devil worship, and talk shows breathlessly debated whether heavy metal albums hid backwards messages from the underworld, the animated hit The Real Ghostbusters wandered, perhaps accidentally, into the center of the storm. The show was shown for its playful mix of spooky adventures and wisecracking humor, a kid-friendly extension of the blockbuster film. But in one rarely seen episode that fans later nicknamed The Dark Dungeons, the writers served up a story that mirrored every adult fear of the era and then cranked the volume to 11. It begins innocently enough. The Ghostbusters are called to check out a mysterious gaming club that meets after dark in a dimly lit community hall. At first, it looks like a quirky base of haunted board games, complete with dice that roll on their own and game pieces that whisper in eerie voices. But as the story unfolds, the atmosphere grows heavier. Candles flicker against stone walls, scrawled with strange sigils. The players chant in low rhythmic tones that echo real-world occult incantations a little too closely for comfort. Pentagrams are drawn, not the playfully Halloween kind, but detailed, chalk-etched circles of the type that had already become tabloid shorthand for devil worship. The tension builds until the club's game master summons a shadowy creature that seems far less cartoonish than the usual Ghostbusters ghosts. Its design is more demon than specter, with glowing red eyes and curling smoke that fills the room. For parents already convinced that games like Dungeons & Dragons were corrupting their kids' souls, this was like pouring gasoline on a bonfire. Phone lines at local TV stations lit up with complaints before the credits had even rolled. Some affiliates aired the episode only once, then vowed never to broadcast it again. Others, hearing the growing outrage, refused to show it at all. When The Real Ghostbusters entered syndication, rerun packages quietly skipped the story without explanation. Over time, it became a kind of forbidden artifact. Fans spoke of it in hushed tones at conventions. Collectors hunted for years for scratchy VHS recordings that proved that it ever existed. For a series built on comic spooks and family-friendly frights, The Dark Dungeons felt like a sudden brush with genuine darkness, too close to the real fears of the decade to be dismissed as simple Saturday morning fun. And if you thought a cartoon about busting ghosts couldn't scare the grown-ups, this episode proved that sometimes the adults, already primed by cultural panic, are the easiest targets of all. Even now, decades later, it stands as a reminder that most unsettling monsters of the 80s weren't the ones hiding in our cartoons. They were the fears hiding in the culture itself. 5 very different shows, 5 episodes that leapt across a line their networks never intended to cross. From Buster Bunny's unsettling finale to the drunken car crash of One Beer, from Dexter's censored clones to the Pokémon's episode that literally sent children to the hospital, and finally, the Ghostbusters tale that tapped into the nation's satanic panic. Each of these stories reveals how fragile that bright, innocent world of Saturday morning cartoons really was. They weren't just entertaining kids. They were walking a tightrope between playful fantasy and the anxieties of the adult world. And sometimes, that tightrope snapped. So now it's your turn. Did you catch any of these episodes before they disappeared? Were you one of the lucky or unlucky kids who saw them live? Drop your memories and theories in the comments below. And if you love these deep dives into the forbidden corners of our childhood, hit that super thanks button to help keep these lost stories alive. Because the next time you revisit your favorite 80s or 90s cartoon, remember, the most shocking moments might be the ones the networks never wanted you to see. But for now, see you next time.